Welcome to the Wingman Show. My name is Drew Brown, and my wingman, my man, the number one guy I know, Dr. Paul Thompson. What's up, brother? Welcome to the Wingman Show, where we're floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you two badass jet pilots, rumble. I'm one of those badass jet pilots. My name is Commander Drew Brown. But that other badass jet pilot, my friend, the guy who watches my six, my comrade, Dr. Paul Thompson. How are you today, brother Paul?
I'm pretty good, Commander Drew. It's good to see you. We're going to have a good show today. I like your background. I like your shirt. I like the whole deal.
Thank you very much. It's my dad. And just for anybody who wants to know why we say float like a butterfly, sting like a bee, my dad was Drew Bundini Brown, and he trained Muhammad Ali, and he came up with float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. So we're going to start off the show today with a great quote. Sometimes you have to wander a bit and do what you don't want to in order to figure out what it is you're supposed to do. That's by Larry David. He wrote Seinfeld, and he had the Larry David Show. Once again, sometimes you have to wander a bit and do what you don't want to in order to figure out what it is you're supposed to do. What do you think about that, Paul?
Yeah, I think that's something that happens. And you were talking about that recently, about a drill instructor that made you do stuff you didn't want to do, but led to good things down the road. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, my gunny made me do a lot of things I didn't want to do. And he gave me a lot of discipline. But what he taught me is I needed self-discipline. And the reason I'm talking about this is because in the Facts in Life, I wrote this: do what you're supposed to do, not what you want to do, until what you're supposed to do becomes what you want to do, and then do what you want to do. Meaning, if you have to go to school, go to school. I had a FedEx driver just deliver something, and he had a younger guy with him. And I love talking to FedEx people. And the first thing I say is, "What's your employee number?" And they're a little shocked right there. And so we started talking, and I said, "Are you going to be a truck driver here at FedEx forever?" He said, "No, I want to do other things." I said, "Well, what college did you go to?" And he told me, I didn't go to college because I don't like school." And that's where this starts. You can't always do everything you like. He looked at my house and my cars and he said, "Man, you really got it." And I said, "I busted my ass for this." But I went to school and I got an education and I learned how to do something. And I said, in order for you to get a house and cars and all that, sometimes you're going to have to do things you don't want to do. Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Basically, to get a marketable skill or profession, or again, something you want to do or it's useful, it requires some kind of study. It's not free. It's not automatic. It does require some hard work. You've got to be, what I say, intentional. You want to hear an example of what you were just talking about, but with a different result?
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay, it was just a few weeks ago. I was getting a little work done on one of my vehicles. I went next door to get something out of a auto parts store to help me. And I went in there and I said, this guy. The guy helped me just by himself. He looked new, young guy, really enthusiastic. We started talking about cars, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm retired right now. But what I used to do was, fly airplanes." And his face lit up. "Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it." I said, "Oh, you interested in flying?" "Well, no, I just enrolled in a aviation school yesterday. I'm just working here to make money to pay for it. I start school and da da da." He had all kinds of plans on what he wanted to do. He looked to be about maybe 23 years old. Your guy was 36, but he was enthusiastic. He said, "It's kind of hard. I'm already good at cars, and the airplane stuff is just add on." And my wife came in, and we were talking like about a good half hour. I'm just buying some car polish, but we talked for a good 30 minutes about aviation, other things you want to do, and he was gung ho. So a lot of things depend on your attitude, not just, I got to go to school. You can't approach it like that. You should, yeah, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do something. I'm going to get something out of this.
Well, you know what helps really? If you know what you want to do and you're passionate about it. And going to school, I hate that people think that going to school is such a bad thing. It's a great thing. Every day you wake up and you learn something is a great day. Let's start off some good news, Dr. Paul.
Sure.
Good news. That's what we do. How about you've heard of Robert E. Lee, that Confederate son of a bee? Well, Robert E. Lee, there was a Fort Robert E. Lee, and they're now changing all these Confederate soldiers to other names. They're changing the bases to other names. And Fort Robert E. Lee has now just become Fort Gregg Adams. And it's called Fort Gregg Adams because they named it after two service people. One of them was Lieutenant General Arthur Gregg. Now, here's just a little side note. You know how you can tell the difference between generals? I had this little saying called "Be my little general," meaning brigadier general, major general, lieutenant general, and then general. That's how I remembered what the ranks of general was. Well, he was a lieutenant general, and he was the first black lieutenant general in the United States Army. Actually, he was the first high-ranking officer in the entire military. And funny, he went to Chicago, believe it or not, to get into medical, not medical school, but he wanted to open up a clinic. And the teachers there told him that he can't work on white patients.
I saw
And
that.
he figured that if I can't work on white patients, I probably won't be able to learn. And he joined the army, Paul.
I saw that. I mean, that's rather remarkable, and developed obviously an outstanding career. Basically, that's similar to something you've talked about before, taking a negative and making it into a positive. You said that, right?
Yes, I love that. That's exactly what he did.
Sure
He
did.
got he refused one assignment to get a better one. And let me just tell you about the other person. Her name is Charity Adams. And she was a lieutenant colonel, and she was the first black woman officer in the military also. She was a great lady, and there was a little story that a white general told her that he's going to send down a white lieutenant to teach her what to do. And she told him over my dead body. He was going to court martial her, and she wanted to write him up, and they both dropped it. But she was a tough cookie too, and that's why they named it Fort Gregg Adams.
Yeah. And there's something else I found out about them. The general, my little general. I'd never heard that before.
He's
That's
my
really
little general.
that's cool. That's cool. But the thing about General Gregg, he was actually the first living person because they changed this some time ago. He was still alive when it happened, but he was actually the first person to have a base renamed after him while he was still alive.
That's right. You know something, Paul? I bet you he's the only person because they stopped
Yes.
doing things like that. Because what happens if you went OJ on them and now you got a whole base named after OJ Simpson?
Right. Well,
They
yeah.
wait until you die.
Yeah. I misspoke. I said he is the first. He's the only. He's the
That's
only, but
right.
he's the first and the only. And you talked
What
about the colonel, and she was really something. That whole she was in charge of like a male unit. It was a morale unit, and there were these group of black women that they designated to go overseas to sort mail for the troops. Because even though the U.S. was winning the war, morale was low because they had millions of pounds of unsorted mail. So their job was to sort this mail, and they went to Birmingham, England, to do it. It's a fascinating story. They're making Tyler Perry. You ever heard of Tyler Perry?
Very much so.
He's a movie maker. He's got something coming out on Netflix, I think in the fall or the winter, covering this story. I think it stars Carrie Washington about this black female unit in World War II. Never seen any movies like that did this sorting and how they lived in England and what they had to fight through with Jim Crow in the U.S. and in the Army, because Jim Crow laws or racial segregation laws, they're enforceable throughout the society, even overseas.
Do you remember when you were on the carrier? The most important airplane coming aboard that carrier was the mail plane. Do
Yes.
you not remember? Because we didn't have FaceTime, we couldn't call home. It
Yeah.
was writing letters. And I'll tell you what, somebody writing you a letter when you're out at sea for 3 and 4 months is the most important thing you can have. And I'll tell you what, that mail is something else, and especially back then.
Yeah, I agree. I have a little story with that. Yeah, you're right, because the mail you're getting, you look at the dates of the letters, it's like 2 months ago. It was not it's not prime time. But I think you talked about that's the best thing to see when the mail plane came aboard. Tell you what, the worst thing to see is when they were transferring bags of mail and a bag got caught I saw a couple times, a bag got caught in a prop wash and it blows over the side. Some
I've
big
seen
thing.
that, and you talking about some pissed off people, but also think about it. If you didn't get the letter you expected, you always thought it was in the ocean.
Yeah, true, true. I get everything. I was lucky. I've seen it a couple times.
Well, I had a great mom. My wife was raising children, and so she didn't write as much as I wanted her to, but my mama wrote her. My mama wrote me every single day. So I always had a letter. Thank you, Mama. I love you. And since we're talking about first, let's go keep going. The first Black Air Force pilot just retired from United, and I mean the first Black woman. Her name is Theresa Claiborne. And funny, you went to the OBAP convention last week and you got to see Theresa Claiborne, didn't you, Paul?
Yes, yes, I did. Captain Claiborne addressed the audience at least once or twice. Well, a couple presentations while I was there. In an awards breakfast and later in the day at another seminar. Maybe other things that I don't know. I wasn't 100% of the time, but most of the time. But she was a dominant figure there and has contributed so much to aviation. And she's also uh, one of the co-founders of I'll call her own group, another group called Sisters of the Skies.
Yeah,
Blind, and we've mentioned them before, but
we sure
Sisters of the
have.
Skies, kind of a parallel organization to OBAP, complementary.
I've been taking Magic Mind every single day since they started sponsoring us again. And I'll tell you what, I was doing laps in the pool the other day, and one of the things it says it gives you is energy. And Paul, I kept swimming laps way past when I usually stop. And it seemed like all of a sudden I had bursts of energy that I didn't have before. And it's got to be from that Magic Mind.
Yeah, it probably helps because I had somewhat of a similar experience. For example, yesterday was my sprint day. I do like little sprints here. And there was also an important phone call I had to take at a certain time. And I took it. So I got the phone in my hand and I'm talking and I'm sprinting up the hill, not 100%, but a good little bit. And I did everything I normally do. Plus I was talking, more exhaling and inhaling. And at the end of it, the call was over. My sprints were done. And they said, you don't have to talk. I said, no, I'm fine. And I was talking the whole time. And I should have been tired, but I wasn't.
I think it's that Magic Mind, Dr. Paul. And anybody out there who's interested in getting Magic Mind, just go to magicmind.co, not .com, but .co. That's magicmind.co. And they just told us if you put in the code Wingman20, you'll get 20% off of Magic Mind when you order it. And I'll tell you what, it's worth it as far as I'm concerned. I really enjoy my Magic Mind, and I really want Katrina, my wife, to stop taking some of mine.
Yeah, my wife asked for it too. Can I have some of that magic mind? Yeah, okay, sure. Not to, don't get make it a habit, but she does.
Well, the name of our show this week is How to Work Anywhere in the World, Be a Digital Nomad. And that is an exciting new career that people can have. You can actually work anywhere in the world you want. I do a lot of cruising on Virgin Voyage because I love Virgin Voyage. And Virgin Voyage last year had a special for digital nomads. You could spend a month on the cruise ship, and I think it was $10,000, but you could work right from the cruise ship for a month. They gave you a big discount on cruising to be a digital nomad. What do you think about being a digital nomad?
I guess it represents freedom, and if you're in the right occupation, right skill set, you can do that. Most of the digital nomads in the world, about half of them are in the U.S. They're from the U.S.
Really?
And they're millennials in general who have a different way of thinking.
Well, this technology thing, first of all, if anybody out there that's doing technology, you need to get up on this AI because AI will be the thing of the future. It's the thing of the present, actually. And with this digital nomad, you have to take a couple of things into consideration. First of all, what country do you want to go to? What countries will let you in? You
Mhm.
have to think about taxes. You have to think about safety. Find a place that you really want to go and test it out. But you also have to talk to your boss and see if that'll be okay and give him the benefits of being a digital nomad and not coming into the office, Paul.
Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. If they got to see you, it could be tough. Also, depending on what you're doing, some some groups may not be too enthusiastic about uh, transmitting certain information, proprietary information over the internet or whatever. So you may have some challenges there. Depends on what it is. But you got to see, like you said, make sure your passport's up. You may need special visas. Depends how long you're going to be somewhere. But the biggest thing, you got to have a good internet connection and reliable computer, and you're good to go.
That's correct. And let me give you the top 10 destinations for remote work. They just did a study, and the first one is Toronto, Canada, then Madrid, Spain, Auckland, New Zealand, Madeira, Portugal. I just left there.
Okay.
Helsinki, Finland, Svalbard, Norway, Berlin, Germany, Valparaiso, Chile, Dublin, Ireland, and Sydney, Australia. Those seem to be the top 10 places to go. Now, they also did, how about the top four quality of life for being a digital nomad? That
Okay.
was Auckland, New Zealand, Honolulu, Hawaii, Sydney, Australia, and Reykjavik, Iceland.
Well, that's far and wide. It's just interesting to get two below the South in the South Atlantic, New Zealand and Sydney.
The last one I want to give you is one of the top three places to live for low cost of living. In other words, all over the world, they don't have prices like America. So there are places that you can live very, very inexpensively. In the top three were Madeira, Portugal, which was surprising, Valparaiso, Chile, and Bucharest, Romania.
Okay. Well, what was your experience in Portugal? Did you find the prices, that much lower for the things you did?
Well, in Madeira, Madeira is an island off of Portugal that's owned by Portugal, and the prices were like 10 years ago here in the States. They seem to be normal. Now I go to lunch with my wife and it's 60 bucks and you're not eating anything but pokey in a regular little pokey store. I
Yeah.
mean, getting a pizza and a salad, it's $40. So the prices were kind of going back to normal. And I loved it. And the people were great there. Well,
Okay.
everybody out there, thank you so much for supporting us, for listening to us on Apple Podcasts, watching us on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate it. And we have a website also, and our website is wingmanshow.com. That's wingmanshow.com. And our website, we have newsletters every week. And our newsletter this week is actually how to become a digital nomad. We'll give you some facts and figures on how to become a digital nomad. But we do want to thank you for supporting us. And check out those badass jets we got behind us today. What I have behind me is an F4U Corsair. That's a pretty ass plane right there, Paul. How
It's a
about you,
beautiful,
Paul?
yeah, it's a beautiful plane. I wouldn't call it a jet. You got a three-bladed prop, but it's a powerful airplane. That's a beautiful one. They use in World War II. You probably see it on blah blah black sheet. And I got a couple of very colorful F-18s behind me.
Yes, they're beautiful too. And I might have called it a jet because it came off a carrier. And to me, flying a prop off a carrier is just that's how they did it, though. So my mistake, should have called it a prop plane. Anyway, thank you so much. And on that website that we have, wingmanshow.com, we actually have a place where you can ask us a question, and that's called our frequent flow line. And this week, we have a frequent flow line from a man in St. Louis, a 48-year-old man in St. Louis, Missouri. He says, my son and I listen to your show every week. He is 24, and we just don't jive like we used to when he was younger. He wants to disagree with almost anything we talk about. You guys have sons. Do you have any advice? You start off, Paul.
Okay. Well, he says he's 24. People sometimes males mature at a little slower rate. I'd say he's still growing up. He's still growing up. And you may have a case of know-it-all-itis. And that's not unusual for people to think that way about their parents, particularly their fathers, until as they get older, then they realize, how smart the father actually was. I think there's a quote from Mark Twain that talks about that. So that's going to change as he gets older and he matures. Don't freak out about it. And to the son, if he's listening, I hope you're listening here. Avoid the temptation to know everything. You don't know everything. You may think you know everything, but listen. Sometimes it's best to sit back and listen a little bit. You can disagree, but listen a little bit. Don't know everything. Don't be a know-it-all like you see on TV and talk radio, and one cuts the other off. Sit and listen. We talked about, you talked about Phil Donahue last week, remember?
Yes.
One thing I did like about the show, some people liked, I generally like the shows. I like the give and the take, whether they disagreed or not. There's give and take, and it was show business. But we don't have that give and take in the culture, in the American culture that I saw years ago. So for the father and son, listen to each other, have a give and take. Don't be too serious about everything. If he argues about everything, it's not going to be the end of the world. Just kind of let some stuff go. You're all evolving, and he's still growing up too.
That's very good, Paul. And I'll tell you something. I have my son, Drew Brown the fourth, who's a spine surgeon, and him and I think fathers and sons sometimes go through rough patches. And I think the son always wants to prove to the father that he is as good or better because I want my children to be better than me. My dad wanted me to be better than him. And so I think there's this little give and take that I need to know something. But I will tell you this, if you raise your children right, they will come back. Sometimes they take off, and sometimes they take off to a planet that we don't know, but they will return. They'll one day say, Houston, I'd like to return back to Earth, and your kids will come through. I love my children, and sometimes it's rough. And you can't push your adult children anymore. You have to nudge them. You
Mhm.
have to just give them a little nudge. And you know what that brings me to? That brings me to the 11 facts in life. And from the 11 facts in life, this is fact number 11. And it's from my best selling book, You Gotta Believe. And that's what it is. You got to believe. And Paul, I wrote a book a while ago that was called You Gotta Believe. It was a bestseller. But why I wrote the book, You Gotta Believe, is because that's where it all starts. You have to believe in yourself. And sometimes that's hard to do if you're around people who don't believe in you. You need to get around people who believe in you. But more important than other people, you have to look in the mirror and start believing in yourself. And I'm telling you, if you can believe it, you can do it. What do you think?
Yep, you're right. Self belief is more important than self doubt. That's a guy I know. He used to end his broadcast with the words, "Feed your faith and starve your doubts." I always remember that's kind of cool. But I think that's the same philosophy you're talking about. But have faith in yourself too.
That's very true. Well, Paul, let's get back to this magic mind for a minute because they have like 13 ingredients in it. And I want to go over one of the ingredients I just read about. And it's called Rhodelio roses. Rhodelio roses. And Rhodelio roses is an actual flower that's grown in Europe and Asia in the very cold mountain regions. And it is said that it has properties that will actually stop your stress because it's an aptogen, and an aptogen naturally stops your body from stressing. And as we all know, stress is the number one killer in America. And this Rhodiola roses actually stops stress. What it does, it helps with fatigue. It helps quality of life, your mood, your concentration. I love all this stuff. What do you think about Rhodelia roses, Paul?
Yeah, that's good. With anything that helps you with stress is good because the stress is not, sometimes it's not obvious. And you may be under all kinds of stress, emotional or whatever. They're just sitting in the background. Because I think of stress like, you're lifting a weight or hard physical, but you can you can actually make yourself sick. You can come apart just sitting by yourself. So anything that helps you with stress is going to be good. And concentration, I like it too, because sometimes I put stuff somewhere and I kind of forget where it is. And the magic mind is helping with that.
You sure that's not age, Paul?
I think it's both. It's that too. It's that too.
Well,
But anything
because
anything
we're
that'll help me, I'll take it.
right, because we're getting older, we definitely need some magic mind to at least keep us even. And anybody out there who's interested in some magic mind, just go to magicmind.co. That's magicmind.co. And if you put in the code Wingman20, they'll give you 20% off of your first order. I think it's great. I love that. How about the gouge, Paul? You know what the gouge is? The gouge is shit you need to know. And we always said that in the Navy.
Yep.
Well, what do you? I'm going to give you the five best states to retire in. They are Delaware, West Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, and Missouri. And just to talk about it, Greg Adams, both of them had time in South Carolina. I love South Carolina. I always thought it was some of the nicest people in the world are from South Carolina. But those are the best states to retire. And we're very blessed because we're in one of them in Georgia. What do you think about retiring in one of those states?
Oh, that sounds pretty good. Again, then South Carolina is really close. Got some really good food in Charleston. I spent some time there. My old college roommate lived there for quite a few years. So I'd be there. I'd fly trips there all the time, especially on the weekend, just hang out. We had a good time.
Well, I didn't come to Georgia because I knew it was a good state to retire. That was just luck. The name of our show is The Wingman Show, and the reason is we always find a wingman who takes care of others. And a wingman is that jet behind you that is watching your six to make sure nobody comes up from behind you. Today's wingman, why don't you tell us about her?
Yeah, this is a person who was a teacher that took basically her life savings and left it to a school. The school was very, very surprised that she got this donation. Lynn Ulrich is her name.
Hmm.
She was a dedicated teacher, and she worked outside of, not too far outside of DC in the Manassas area, which is Virginia. It's about near the Dulles Airport. But she had accumulated quite a bit of money. She never married, never had children, and was basically had no living relatives. She retired at the age of 89 and lived to 93. And her school district was so surprised when they got this inheritance of $1 million that she wanted to leave to her school family. And that money is being used for college expenses for some students, infrastructure improvements, curriculum development. Also, she wanted some of it used for, I won't say AI, but for modernization of the whole school system. It's quite a gift. You don't typically think that, teachers make that much, but I guess you make a little bit of money for a long time and not do anything with it. Yeah, it'll accumulate. So she's
Yeah,
our
she
wingman of the week, a teacher who's still giving even after she's gone.
well, she taught for 67 years, Paul. That's a hell of a career.
That's a long
And
time.
like you said, she retired at 89 years old. But what she did, she said that she lived frugally. She didn't have any children, like you said. She didn't spend much money on herself, and she saved that money for her children. The exact opposite of what I'm going to do. I
Good.
work for this money. My kids are doing very well for themselves. So I'm going to be like my dad. He said, I'm going to die with a dime in my pocket so somebody can call and pick up the body. Well, I'm not going to die with a dime in my pocket because that won't do anything for you. Instead, I'll say, I'll die with a cell phone in my pocket so somebody can come and pick up the body. Meaning that if you're out there and you've busted your butt for many years, please be good to yourself. You can spend that money on yourself. You can take care of yourself.
That's right.
Well, everybody out there, thank you once again for watching our show, listening to our show. And for all of you out there, whatever you think is important and whatever you think is beautiful, and especially whatever makes you happy, may you have that today and forever. I pray for peace.
I pray for peace too, Commander Drew. It's good talking to you. And to those listeners and viewers who see our message, we appreciate it if you share it, give us a like on YouTube, subscribe. It helps the algorithm, helps it spread to other people. Most of you are not subscribed. Please subscribe. Pass this on to someone. It's good news. It's hard to find good news. There are a lot of very tragic things that happen, but there are wonderful things happen too. And we're trying to show some of those to you good people. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Dr. Paul Thompson, my friend. Thank you for your love, your time, and that's something that we won't ever get back. I want to thank all the listeners too. Thank you so much for doing the show, Dr. Paul. We're jamming.
Well, thank you, Mr. Drew, for inviting me on. Always good to talk to you. And ladies and gentlemen, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast or any of the podcasts. If you're looking at YouTube, they say smash the like button. Don't smash it. Just press it gently and refer to use as a link to all your friends. You can also look at us on our website, wingmenshow.com, WINGMEN show, SHOW.com altogether, wingmenshow.com. And we hope to see you in the future. Thanks again, Mr. Drew.
Oh, you're welcome. And we're still floating like butterflies and stinging like bees. Rumble, you badass jet pilots, rumble. May there be peace on earth, and goodwill towards all men and women.